Hello and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today we are looking at one tea and it's from Taiwan Tea Craft and it is their Lishan 90K High Mountain Oolong Tea from winter 2025. Now to explain, the 90K is indicating that this is coming from a sub-region of Lishan and it is the region of Dayuling, which if I understand correctly is actually a ridge, and it's an area that is described by the passage of a road, number 8, that leads up to Lishan village. Anybody who wants to correct me, please put it in the comments. I always appreciate any comments people have. And there are successive markers along the road, distance markers, and tea farms, or at least some of the Dayuling tea farms, I don't know if it's necessarily all of them, are named after the distance marker that they're nearest to. And so we have the 90K, so it's the farm that's nearest to the 90K marker. Now with the Dayuling teas, you are getting into serious high altitudes. These teas coming in at about 2,500 meters, so that's pretty spectacular. And we've got the effects of terroir, we've got the effects of altitude, so it's climate as well as the terroir itself. And in the case of this tea, Taiwan Tea Crafts points out that the tea is made in a slightly more traditional approach. So it's slightly more oxidized and a slightly different way of ball rolling the tea leaves and drying them, which in turn has an effect on the nature of the tea. And I get the impression that as much as the flavour of the tea is important, when it gets the high altitude teas, depending on how carefully you treat them, you're now getting very much into the field of texture as well. It's about the chemical makeup of the leaves, basically. The other thing to say about these teas is I was having difficulty getting an affordable sample of any from spring of 2025. These leaves are, these teas in general are more exclusive because it's harder to, you don't produce as much tea at that altitude in the first place. And on top of any considerations like that, some of these tea farms are being taken over or bought out. I don't want to use the incorrect verb there, to be turned over for as sort of ecological reserve territories, which means that some farms, such as I think very recently the 88K farm, has closed. So you've got built-in scarcity and then an increasing scarcity, just adding to the exclusivity, therefore, no other way to put it, the price of the tea. However, I am on the lookout. This is March 2026 at the time of recording, and I will keep my eye out to see if I can find any spring teas from 2026 from Dayuling. Be nice to be able to get them from 90K or from the tea that I'm going to be looking at next, so that we can compare the same farms. However, I would just like to see what one of these teas is like in spring, if I could. Nevertheless, that's enough havering. Let's take a look at the packaging for the tea leaves, and then we will do our Western or Teapot review and our Gongfu session, both to review this tea. Back very soon. Here we are looking at the label on the packaging for our tea from Taiwan Tea Crafts. It's their Lishan 90K High Mountain Oolong Tea from winter 2025. Hopefully it's nice and clear. This is a 50-gram package and the harvest was October 2025. It's lot 1455 and you might be able to see the details at the bottom. 100% tea leaves, produce of Taiwan. There's a best before date squiggled into the corner there a bit. So this is the first of our Dayuling teas that we're going to be looking at. Now, well, let's move on to the tea inside. This is the tea material for Taiwan Tea Craft Lishan 90K High Mountain Oolong Tea, winter 2025. The tea beads are pretty consistent. They're quite small, On average, somewhere about 3 millimeters, although there are some more like 5 or 6. There is quite a variety of colour, almost all shades of green, obviously, although some of the stalk material, which is prominent, has got some brown elements. Some of the green is coming from edging to the tea beads and some from other stem material. However, it's more than simply the edging as we found on other teas. Whole sides of some of these tea beads are a much paler green, and I think that does come out on the camera. The smell of the tea, something slightly almost resinous and sappy and sweet, and something slightly cereal. So a very interesting flavour, I beg your pardon, aroma combination, and the tea beads are very inviting, so I am looking forward to reviewing these. Let's move on. Here we are with the first of the 2 reviews for today's tea. This is the Lishan 90K, or from Dayuling, and it's from Taiwan Tea Crafts. The brewing parameters, once again, are being very careful with this tea. Make sure we don't oversteep it or mess around with the parameters too much. So the water is at 90 degrees centigrade, 3 grams of tea, 250 mils of water for 3 minutes. And then that was for the first steep. For the second steep, we've simply used another 250 mils of water for another 3 minutes. Let's take a look at the colour of the teas. Pretty much the same. I would say perhaps the first steep is a touch more greenness, and it's a little clearer, less particulate matter. Other than that, they're much of a muchness, the same intensity of colour, so I'll put it that way. Let's have a smell at the first steep. Wow, lots of cream. Lots of cream, it's sweet. There might even be something slightly savoury in there. I think it might be just something slightly vegetal or slightly herbal. But lots of sweetness and cream. Yeah, there is a vegetal note. Now this steeping is hotter. You might be able to see it steaming whereas the other one has stopped steaming. So we're going to just sniff it from down here, try and get some cooler steam. That is almost perfumey. It's almost like wine. Yeah, it's like a sweet wine, sweet white wine. No, I don't mean it's got any of the astringency that you might get with a wine. I just mean that volatile note, that sense, the alcohol itself. It's the whatever alcohol molecules do to your nose and your palate, other than get you drunk. That is, let's not go there, especially not at 10 o'clock in the morning. So let's try, this is going to be very interesting. Let's try the first steep. I'm going to move that across. Fair bit of sweetness on the cup. Medium body already. Flavour is lingering. That's good. It's slightly thinner than I would like, but it's lingering. Plenty sweetness. And some fruit. Not too strong. As I say, the flavour is dropping off slightly, but I don't mind that when I know I've been sort of playing it safe with the parameters. That reflects on my caution, not the tea itself. The body's phenomenal already. Almost medium. Yeah, just under medium. Very smooth, very harmonious. So let's try the second steep. Yeah, that sort of wine note, phenomenal. Now what comes across on the cup is more vegetal and sweet, maybe florals. Yeah. Excuse me. Florals. For once, florals, sweet, very perfumey, very heady, still plenty of body, and it's sweet, that's helping as well. I wouldn't say it's fresh, there's nothing sort of herbal or green about it. It's just florals and a heady perfumey note and plenty of sweetness. I'm going to try again because I'm curious to know if there's any cream. Unless the cream is just adding to the body, the cream isn't there, but there is plenty of florals, and it's lingering nicely. Plenty of sweetness. This is not what I was expecting. I don't know why. I was expecting something more like a snowpick tea. Something that's got so much texture, you feel you could eat it with a spoon. This is very different. This is just... There's cream, granted, there's cream in that first tea, but it's light and it's elegant. It's phenomenal. Wonderful. Okay, let's move on to our Gongfu and see whether we get sweetness or cream or fruit or, well, florals or that really potent headiness, and see if we can manage those. Back in a moment. Right, this is 95K, went to 2025. Okay, here we are with our Western / teapot style review for beautiful Taiwan teas 95K Lishan or Dayuling tea. Let's take a look first of all at the colour of the teas. Just taking a quick look myself. I would say the first steep is slightly more intense, but they've moved beyond silver, the silvery kind of colour of a white tea, a much more obvious sort of yellowy green. I would say the first steep is slightly more intense. I think that's fair. The aroma. Vegetal, very sweet. Florals, lots of florals. And something else. It's a sweet something. It's got a tart edge. Really not quite sure what to make of that. The tart edge is there again with this one, the second steep. But there's a bit of cream there as well. The brewing parameters for this tea, I'm going to start calling it playing it safe parameters. 3 grams of tea, 250 mils of water, 90 degrees centigrade, 3 minutes. Then take the same tea leaves, re-steep them for another 3 minutes. So let's try. Really, really, really sweet and floral. Medium, light to medium body, very smooth, some sweetness. More a tart fruit, I would say. It's not the rhubarb quality that we had with Fu Shu Shan from a little while ago. But there's a slight, maybe that's a herbal note, I don't know. It's lingering beautifully on the palate. It's really sort of perfumey. That's really good. Right, let's try the second steep. I'm about to pour it out into 2 cups. Don't think we need to do that. The tart edge and the sweetness both coming through. Body has crept up to just below medium, I would say. Flavour's dropping off slightly, so this one's definitely responded better to the first steeping. Or at least it's responded well to the first steeping and there's less to give. Let's put it that way. That tart edge lingers. Again, it's refreshing. It's going to sound odd. I feel as if, at least with the Western, this 95K, it's a little one-dimensional. I'm getting something that's lingering nicely, and there's a bit of sweetness, and there's a little bit of... It's little bits, that's the thing. There's some tartness, yes, but it's just little things. It may just be because it doesn't like being Western or teapot style brewed, which is fair enough. It's even slightly drying. But I like the fact that the flavour does linger, and it's not an unpleasant flavour at all. So there is something there that's in with a good deal of intensity, and I'm very interested to see what we can do to bring that out. So let's move on to our Gongfu session and see what aspects of this flavour profile we can discover on the way. See you soon. Hello again, this is our Gongfu session to conclude our video and to conclude our review of this tea, which is the Lishan 90K. That's from Dayuling, and the tea is from Taiwan Tea Crafts. Winter 2025 offering. We've got our playing it safe parameters: 3 grams of tea, water at 90 degrees centigrade, 50 mils per steeping, and we're going to keep our steepings very short, starting at 45. Although given these tea beads are quite large, we might end up with 5 steepings even at short ones, just to get the most out of that. So let's begin. Once again, I've noticed I haven't got my strainer, but we will manfully, valiantly endure. Not to use oh wow, that's popping. Not to use overblown language at all. Let that drain a bit better. Everything is, of course, pre-warmed. Our wastewater jug is there. Got my notepad to record the steeping times, although we are being relatively consistent, and the stopwatch. But we will just take this first one to 45. Don't fidget. Here we are coming in for 45. Ooh. Strong herbal vegetal note already. something slightly cereally, but I think that's probably to do with the vegetable component. The tea beads, wow, I suppose this amount of stalk in there. Some of those beads have actually started to unfurl already. At least one of them has. The rest are already at the velvet stage. Velvet covered pebbles. That's very impressive. The colour is just beyond white tea and into something with a silvery white tea colour, that is. And it's picked up a slightly yellow edge. I like to let that cool down. I wish I'd bought a spare jug. Wow. It's sweet, it's creamy, it's vegetal. Slightly perfumey. I don't detect any sort of tang to it. So it's more green for the herbal rather than something with a bit of tang or astringency. I would say the same is true of the cup. Almost medium body already. Wow. That's a lot of body. At least for a first steep. Lots of cream, vegetal. Flavour is barely dropping off. Yeah. Doesn't have a sort of root vegetable dullness, but there's a lot of vegetal note to that. And the cream is lingering on the palate too. Okay, I'm going to drink that slightly cooler in 2 takes, but let's get this up for 50. We're going to have to be very careful with these steepings. This tea is responding very well to Gongfu. Right. This is the rest of the first steeping again, remember? I can't believe how intense the flavour is. At the very least for first steeping. It's dropping off slightly, but there's still a lot of it. Plenty of body. You can almost feel a kind of creamy note. There's a lot of body there. Right, we're coming up for 50. Make sure that's drained. And 50. Herbal, vegetal, sweet. It's picked up the sort of coconutty smell that the wet leaves, well, I always call it coconut, the smell the wet leaves have. As you can see, those are really unfurling. Well, maybe you can't, but take my word for it if you can't. Those are really unfurling already. Once again, I think it's to do with the stalk material, just pulling the beads apart. If we take that one, for example, one of those leaves has unfurled largely, but this one here is still rock solid. So you can tell, yeah, I think that's a structural thing. Yeah, there's a lot of this still at the sort of velvet coloured bead. Oh, wow. That's gone from yellow to yellowy green, definitely yellowy green. Can you get maybe there? There we go, yellowy green. More cream, more vegetal, with a sweet note to keep it fresh. Okay. Yeah, cream, sweet vegetable. Wow, the body's up again. It's not drying, but oh, that's going to have to be steeped very carefully. That's very nearly on the edge, I think. Yeah, we need to go up in a few seconds at a time for that, I think. Again, the mouthfeel. My mouth is covered, is coated. That's amazing stuff. Yep, leaves are not there yet. We're going to get at least 2 more steeps out of that. I think we will have to be careful with this. And maybe just take it to 52 again. In fact, I'd be curious to know how much water we're going to need for this. That's about 60. and we will take that to just 52. Excuse me. Yes, I should have roiled that around, sugared it in this jug, just to see if it leaves a sort of viscosity, because like a film, because that is definitely coating the mouth. Not drying it, coating it. Very good. And the flavours lingering nicely, mostly a creamy vegetable note. Right, sorry, that's coming up 53, not 52. I will just take a note of that. Cream, herbal, okay. How are we doing here? Right. You can probably tell some of those have started to unfurl, but they're nowhere near fully hydrated, so we'll definitely get a fourth steep out of that. Yeah, we are going to have to be careful. That was the end of the last steep. Colour-wise, we are into now more green than yellow, I would say. Yeah. Oh, there's a bit of perfume creeping in to go with the vegetable note. Bit of cream there. That's very well balanced. I wouldn't say we've got fruit or florals or even sort of direct freshness. This is much more to do with a satisfying brew, if you see what I mean, with the body and with that texture and with that sort of creamy herbal vegetable note, but with that sweetness that stops it from being just sort of heavy. It's very satisfying. It's over medium body easily. Same kind of flavour profile. I'm glad there's that sweetness and a bit of cream just to liven it up. I know we've just said that, but it's true. These leaves are... we're in the same boat. They just need a bit more room. Hold it against my hand. They just need a bit more room to steep properly. So we will probably throw in 80 for this one. Is that about right? Yeah, looks about right. Which means we'll probably push it to a minute or so and see where that takes us. That is a nice colour. Right, finishing off the last steep. Do need to be careful though. A lot of good things coming out with the Gongfu, but it really is on the edge of being drying. Not just drying, but overdone. Not sure you'd want to take the temperature any lower. Maybe a touch more tea to something. Anyway, that was 53, the previous one. So let's play this safe. We're going to take this to a minute 5. And see where that gets us. And the cat's waking up, so he's gone back to sleep, making sure he's not going to climb across the screen. If I just marketed is the wrong word. If I publicized all these videos as cat interrupts tea reviews, I'd have millions of views. Okay, I think that's probably going to drop off a little. But yeah, the leaves have had much more room to unfurl. So if I take, yeah, there you go. Look, you can see how that's had much more chance to sort of flatten out. Oh, now, that's interesting. It's become, the cream and the vegetable is there, the herbaceous has picked up, and it's really livening that. Sort of a sappy quality, not astringent or anything. Just a sort of sappy quality, and there is some cream there as well. That's really, really interesting. Let's pour a bit off to cool. Colour-wise, I would say the colour has dropped off to equally green-yellow. It doesn't smell like we've lost anything. Certainly it doesn't on the cup. There's more sweetness. Okay. Flavour's dropping off a little quickly for my liking, but there's plenty of it. Body has stayed... No, body's back to medium. Yeah, medium body. Everything's harmonious. Herbal, vegetable, cream. I don't get that stronger herbal note that was on the cup. That was on the aroma. But the whole harmonious flavour profile is sitting on the palate. And it doesn't seem to be any more drying, so that was definitely a good shout. Okay, let's think about this. The Gongfu, I think, was a good shout. Although you are going to have to be careful as to how much the duration of the steeps and what you do to play with that to stop it from overbrewing. That last one, again, we're pushing up against too much, but we've got more flavour as well. So that's a fair exchange, no robbery, as we say up here. It's a very satisfying tea, and I think that is the thing people are going to want to take away from that. Yes, there's something making a bit livelier. It's not all about texture and body. There's creaminess, perfume, a bit of sweet, a bit of herbal notes just livening it. But I think it's fair to say what you're gaining in body with these teas, you're going to lose in sheer intensity of freshness, florals, fruit, and that's fair enough. But you're not losing out altogether. There's the creaminess, which I assume is a Qingshin sort of holdover, is there. And the herby vegetal richness to the whole thing is very satisfying. So, once again, and as always, I hope that's been of some interest and some use. This is from Taiwan Tea Crafts, and as a matter of courtesy, if this Lishan 90K sounds interesting, as a matter of courtesy, I don't benefit from it whatsoever. I'm not affiliated with anybody. I would suggest getting it through Taiwan Tea Crafts. However, it only remains for me to say that I really enjoyed that. And happy steeping, and God bless.